I'm Bobby Woldridge, Senior Ministry Consultant here at Subsplash, and riding alongside me, a man with over 10 years plus of ministry experience, the one, the only, Pastor Justin. Pastor Justin, dude, so glad to have you on here.
Thanks so much, Bobby. It's a pleasure to be here. And this is a good conversation. Excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a reminder that today's webinar will be recorded, so we will send you out a copy. No need to be frantically taking notes. Sit back, enjoy. Feel free to light up the conversation. I know there'll be a lot of questions. Also, feel free to put those questions in the Q&A. We will have a Q&A at the end of this as well. And so feel free to ping that as well. Just, hey, welcome everybody. Feel free to ping the chat. Bobby here in Southern California, right next to Disneyland, saying welcome. And Justin, you're out in Cincinnati?
Yeah, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cool. And also just a reminder that, this will just cover a fraction of what this space is all about. And if you want a little bit more information or resources to share back with your team, there's an incredible free ebook. If you go to subsplash.com/big-tech, free ebook that we'd love to share with you that you can take back to the rest of the team as well. But before we kind of get into it, set the stage first a little bit, Justin. What are we going to cover today?
Yeah, well, I want to start with a statement that hopefully should resonate with all of us here on this webinar. It certainly resonates with us here at Subsplash and drives a lot of what we build and is the impetus for the features, functionality, and the kind of integrations that we're helping church do when it comes to connecting with digital audiences. And that statement is this, that the truth of Jesus through the life of the local church is the greatest source of hope and joy for the world. And essentially that boils down to discipleship. It's all about discipleship. That's what drives us at the core of what we do, which is right in line with what Jesus has asked us to do through the Great Commission in Matthew 28, which is to go into all the world and make disciples. So here's the way we view the different onboarding ways that people make this possible through digital means. There's lots of different points in which we are constantly inviting people and giving them opportunities to be a part of community and hopefully dive a little bit deeper into their faith and their family of faith. And so you can see them on the discipleship flywheel as it were, but I'll just read them here really quickly so we can kind of see and probably find some agreement in how we view where people can join and belong. So we have discover. That's probably the first and foremost. People need to know who we are, where we are, how to find us, how to get in touch with us. And we'll talk a little bit about that today as well. Once they've discovered who we are and want to join, then they're going to attend and maybe they do a couple of online virtual services with us, some devotionals that we're posting throughout the week. But eventually we want them also to walk into the doors of our church and join the community, which then invites them into belonging. Once they're a part, we want them to go deeper in God's word and into the presence of God in prayer, to abide with God and scripture. And then from there, we want them to serve and then to give and then to share. These are all outward examples of forms of generosity, whether they're sharing the gospel, sharing of their time and their talent, or whether they're sharing of their treasure. We want all of these things to be frontward facing. And so at Subsplash, we recognize that the digital portion of this is extremely important in today's expression of churches, because we really believe that you can't have discipleship without engagement. And so that's really what we're talking about here today as we continue to move through. That big church shouldn't need to conform to big tech. The church, well, it could be the big C church too, shouldn't conform to big tech in order to reach more people with the gospel. And that's the absolute truth. And so we have people doing all sorts of things today to try to find ways to connect with their audiences. And our question today is it working now and will it work in the future? Bob, you want to show a couple of statistics of what we're seeing today?
Yeah, here's a couple industry stats that, to be honest, are probably lowballing it. 73% of churches have a Facebook page and 72% are using online giving. I would take a wild guess and say it's about 100% of the people on the webinar here today have a Facebook page and are using some sort of online giving. And on top of that, 76% are posting sermons, 82% are live streaming. So again, a lot of us are leaning into this space. However, only 30% of pastors say that they are effective when it comes to engaging their congregants digitally. So again, Pastor Justin, from your experience, can you tell us a little more about those stats and even in your experience, what it all means?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a disconnect. Is what this is showing us is that we are used to as church leaders taking handfuls of content, most likely our Sunday sermon and maybe a spattering of a few other things, and then throwing that across as many channels as we can, hoping that it sticks with somebody and lands effectively. But what we're actually seeing here is that while we are trying to make things available, are we actually being effective in the way that it's being received? And are we actually engaging people effectively? And I think that's really the big question that we're trying to answer in today's conversation. And so as we throw our content across multiple platforms, we're going to discover, are there some hidden costs with big tech? Are there some things that we haven't foreseen when it comes to trying to make places available where people can go to find discipleship resources? We'll answer some of those questions. We also want to talk a little bit about some of the tools made for ministry and what it looks like to actually build a theology around digital discipleship, not just getting content up into YouTube. And then, of course, we want to open up some time for some Q&A today. And we'd love for you to submit your questions in there. We'll be answering them here at the later part of the webinar. And again, grateful that you joined us.
Yeah, and Harold and Ben, I already see you guys submitted a couple questions. Again, feel free to log those Q&As. We will definitely devote a little bit of time towards the end of this. But let's just get things kicked off with a little poll. So which digital channel are you depending on most when it comes to engaging your online community? So poll just launched. There's a couple options there on the screen: email, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Vimeo. Oh, looks like MySpace got left off. Okay, so if you want to vote MySpace, you got to vote for that in the chat. But we got about a third of the room responding, with Facebook with a commanding lead so far. Over 70% are leaning heavily into Facebook. Looks like Instagram, YouTube are kind of trailing behind, but just in second places.
Yeah.
Looks like Pastor Justin, when he used to run track, he's a mile ahead and everyone else is just trying to catch him for second. All right, we'll give you guys about 10 more seconds to kind of get those polls. But again, very not surprising, to be honest with you. 70+% are leaning into Facebook the most, followed by YouTube at 14%. Then it looks like email and Vimeo, Instagram kind of pulling up the tail end there. So interesting results, but again, not necessarily that surprising, especially considering the seasons we have just come off of in these last several years. I know a lot of teams weren't leaning into some of these tools or kind of had to dip a toe, but then when COVID hit, it was like, where are we going to put this content? People can't make it to us. How do we get to them? Facebook. Okay, it's free. Boom. And everybody rushed to Facebook or YouTube or Vimeo or something like that. And so I think now's a good time. We're a couple years removed from that shock in 2020 to really identify, like, okay, what are we doing with this content? What is our true online strategy? And then are there any potholes that we should be aware of, including things like what happens when big tech decides that your content doesn't align with their values? And so there is definitely a lot of meat on that bone. And now that we've hopefully survived any port in the storm season that we were in. But yeah, 7 hidden costs of big tech. And I'll guess kind of rolling with that first one. So content ownership. This is imperative. This is absolutely key. In my role, I get the privilege to talk to thousands of ministries each year and really kind of workshop their online strategy. And a big part of that is, what are we doing with your messages? What are we doing with your live stream? That one piece is the thing that elevates the rest of the discipleship journey. Because who's going to join a Bible study if they didn't resonate with your teachings? Who's going to serve or give or do outreach if they didn't resonate with your teaching? So making sure you own that content and are intentional with that is huge. Now, the down part is when we upload that to Facebook or YouTube, we completely relinquish control of that. We actually don't even own it anymore. They do. And so, yes, it's free. However, there's an enormous soft cost in terms of control and what happens to that content after it. And so they can mute you, they can suppress you, they can delete you. Again, there's a lot on the screen that we'll continue to unpack. But Justin, take it away, point 2.
Yeah, well, that includes, once the content is up and live and out there in the wild, as they say, that means it's up to the discretion and the response of anybody who wants to lean in, listen, comment, like, dislike, report, if it seems to violate not just the larger standards that we'll talk about in a little bit from the platforms themselves, but also from the people using and interfacing with those platforms. There's a lot that can be reported, shut down, and and even censored at the community level, simply if somebody doesn't like what you have to say.
In addition, they're I'll kind of jump ahead one slide, but they're not even hiding that for a fact, by the way. This is straight from their terms of service, the right to monetize, the right to prioritize. It doesn't matter if you're in their partner program and you're trying to monetize your content. It doesn't matter. They are trying to monetize your content. And that's where things like ads, next suggestions pop up. You have zero control over what ad plays if there are ads. It's really kind of the church versus this $500 billion algorithm that is really trying to understand who that user is, what's the most appetizing thing for them, and how do we get them to click on it. And then they build those profiles on each individual person. So for me, you can see a surfboard, guitar, USC football helmet. They're going to show me, ads that are going to gear towards me. The next Top Gun highlight. Oh man, did you see this? Hey, football highlight. Did you see that? And then I'm a man of incredibly weak willpower. It doesn't. If you show me, Reggie Bush breaking a 50-yard run, I'm out of here. I'm going to watch that. And so, compared to something different for my wife, there's a whole different algorithm for her. So it really is the church versus the algorithm when we're trying to build our entire house of content on those platforms.
Yeah, the other thing that comes in there with the ads is also just a tremendous amount of distraction. So, as Bobby mentioned, it's really easy to get pulled into other parts of that ecosystem because it's designed to keep that user inside of that ecosystem. So we've all had that experience before where there's suggested video content, there's notifications that come through of new uploads, things that are competing for the attention of your people. You really are trying to get in there to find something that's going to benefit your spiritual formation, or take the next step in your discipleship journey. And within 5 minutes, you're watching Batman trailers. Like as Bobby said, it's an incredible thing on how this works. This kind of distractions actually shrink our impact of what we can share online because it becomes so diluted. It almost becomes like, I have this picture. Sometimes I play with my son. Maybe you've played it. If you have kids, you've played this game before in years past or have seen it. It's called The Floor is Lava, where your living room turns into this big, untouchable space, and you're jumping from furniture to furniture, trying to get to one end of the room, from one end of the room to the other. That's what I feel like sometimes it is when people are trying to dodge content that isn't what they expected when they logged in to try to find something that would be beneficial to them. It's almost this bit of floor is lava where they're jumping from good, safe content to try to cling to the next good, safe content. And then they're gone, and then they bail, and there's no way to follow up and make sure that they're taking meaningful next steps on that discipleship journey. We don't want distraction. We want discipleship.
Absolutely. And another just pitfall to be aware of is censorship, and not just censorship, but also the algorithm will prioritize other content and not prioritize certain content. And so there is, again, when you relinquish that control, it's up to those algorithms and big tech what they want to show your congregation as important compared to what they don't prioritize as important, unless you pay us more money, and then we will boost your content. And so it's a really, really tricky space in terms of navigating the censorship. And on top of what Justin said, there are no words and no sentences that you can't say, even if that's what you want to express and what you want to say. It's kind of out of our control, and you have to craft your message a certain way to make sure it gets past the goalie. And on top of that, there are things like copyright issues. Yes, we Subsplash still applies copyright law. We're not lawless pirates. But at the end of the day, what we are not, though, it has a bunch of AI bots scrolling through the content, combing through the media. I would love to fire up another poll that says who here on this webinar has had their message stopped on those other platforms despite being in the right. So you might have had the right license to play that song. You might have written your own personal song and it got flagged, taken down, video stopped, people watching. How long are they going to watch a dead link? So they leave. You submit the rebuttal and say, hey, actually, I don't know why this got flagged. We do have the license to play it. This is actually accurate. It takes 12 to 24 hours for them to get back to you and say, yep, you're right. Sorry, AI bot made a mistake. Should never have happened. Oh, well, see you next week, right? Like opportunity missed, opportunity lost. Because again, as soon as we give that power away, they can do whatever they want. They can stop the feed and go, hey, tough cookies. We'll see you next week.
Well, Bobby, that actually happened to a church here in Cincinnati, a fairly large one last year during Easter. They had the rights to a clip of the Passion of the Christ, and they were playing that on their live stream, and it shot across Facebook and YouTube. And that live stream was shut down in the middle of the broadcast because of that kind of violation, and they had the rights to that clip. And also YouTube deemed it too violent for their broadcast as well. And I mean, obviously that is a bit of a violent movie. If you've seen Passion of the Christ, I'm assuming many people have. And yet, what happened was during an Easter broadcast with thousands and thousands of people engaged in that, they lost the entire broadcast for the service. And this is stuff that's happening more and more and more with the church every single weekend. Yeah. Which then also leads into number 7, social and political agendas. I mean, it's no secret that everybody logs into to these kinds of sites with differing backgrounds and views and thoughts about morality and values and ethics, and some align with Christian values and ethics and messages that are being preached on Sunday. Some do not. And so when you start to mix all of those things together in these incredible melting pots, these actually become really big challenges for churches to figure out how do we keep our stuff up and running. Will the big tech companies that we're working with across the board, all the social companies and so forth, eventually write into their terms and conditions things that outlaw the kinds of content and things that we're talking about because of the agendas they follow? And these are real concerns for the Western church. And so I'd ask the question on this slide here: are online platforms forming or deforming your people in unexpected ways? I think, Bobby, one of the things that I think is concerning, as somebody who's been in ministry for a number of years, is, and I think we can all agree, spiritual formation does not happen overnight. Our discipleship journey and our transformation to becoming like Christ is something that can take a lifetime and beyond. These social platforms are designed for quick hit, 2-minute consumption of content, then you bail and move to the next topic, and you're just being pinball almost mentally and emotionally to all these different things, which is the opposite of what the Christian experience is, which is full immersion. And so these online platforms also, if we're not careful and we load all of our stuff in there, we are actually doing our people a disservice when we're asking them to take a mode or a method of spiritual formation and actually deforming because the platforms are not conducive for the kind of spiritual formation that's necessary in this Christian journey. All of this stuff works to compete against the very mission of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I've again with my unique role, getting to talk to tons and tons of churches in my team at Subsplash, which I absolutely love. I've heard some wild stories in the last couple of years, just absolutely insane stories. That again, if you're ever in Southern California, buy me a cup of coffee. I can share those with you, but maybe not on the webinar. But I don't think it's that far of a stretch to think, hey, at some point someone's going to read, pull open the Bible, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and then boop, here comes the censorship red flag. Actually, that's not what we scientifically agree upon in our community. Here are other creationist stories that I think you need to check out. And so again, when you give up control like that, there are all kinds of goofball nonsense like that, where it's like, man, if you guys didn't like Genesis 1:1, strap in. It's gonna get, there might be other stuff coming too. But it doesn't just stay with your content. There are other just potential landmines out there, including things like generosity.
Yeah, this is a big one. When we say generosity, obviously there's the financial component of our worship through tithes and offerings. And we've even seen, if you're following headlines, big donation platforms being shut down at the headquarters because people, launched different campaigns that were, that were not in accordance with the terms and conditions of that. And, people could look at that, whether they agreed or disagreed, and think, oh my gosh, this is an infringement on free speech. But what happens again when these things start making their way into the church on the platforms that we use and depend on, even for the lifeline? But even more than just financial generosity, in which these tools that are offered are not designed with ministry in mind. This also leads to when people want to be generous with their time, or they start wanting to take next steps where they're giving of their talents as well to volunteer and serve. It's very hard to get people into meaningful next steps when, number one, there's not a very simple and conducive place for people to do that. Number two, in an environment that is dedicated to the mission of your church and of your ministry. And then number three, when there's so much distraction and ads and everything else that are pulling people away from taking those meaningful next steps that you can track as a ministry, all of this pulls away from people's journey and desire to lean in and to go further. It takes a tremendous amount of willpower these days to make it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And to kind of just come full circle, it really is all about investing in tools that help you build the house on the right foundation. And so when you give that control away, they can do whatever they want compared to something that is built specifically to serve the church, specifically to help fulfill the Great Commission, specifically to, and again, we'll get into this more, but it's not saying you need to ignore big tech and be invisible there, but don't build the entire house and put all those eggs in that basket. If we are talking about discipleship, make sure we understand the role of each one of these tools that you have, and when to lean into them and when not to. And actually, really great quote that Justin, I think you were part of this interview.
Yeah, we interviewed Brett McCracken about a year ago on our Equip and Engage podcast. And by the way, for those of us here on this webinar, this conversation today, if you've never checked out our Equip and Engage podcast, we have dozens and dozens of conversations in there with great resources, great guests, all trying to find ways to to help all of us take these next steps forward in this brave new world. This was a conversation, though, with a specific quote that we wanted to highlight for this conversation. And this is what Brett had to say. He said, when churches start thinking that they're competing with YouTube or TikTok, it's an admission that we as the church are substantively the same as those things, that we're all just a part of this crowded marketplace of attention competing for eyeballs. He goes on to say, but that's a losing strategy. We're never going to be able to compete if we position ourselves as one among many consumeristic diversions that people can choose. Again, this is not about how many places like TikTok can I get content to. And I see some questions in here too about the ease of use of Facebook and YouTube. Bobby will speak to that in just a moment. But this is about how do we create a comprehensive theology around digital discipleship, recognizing that this is an important part of helping bring people into the life of our church, not just uploading content to platforms. And we'll continue to talk a little bit about that.
So that's where we do introduce Subsplash One in terms of all the doors are unlocked. Every tool that we create here at Subsplash is included, so you guys can just pull it off the shelf and maximize it. So mobile apps for phones, tablets, Apple TV, Roku, live streaming, media management and storage, websites, people and group management, child check-in, volunteer management, CRM, all of that functionality is included. And it really all speaks to building the house the right way. And so this is really key. And I want everyone to really understand this what I'm trying to say here. It's not saying be invisible on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and Twitter. It's not saying you need to turn your back on those and be invisible, but really understand what those tools are trying to do. They don't want you to be on a message for an hour. That's not a win for big tech, to have one person sitting on a message to focus in on the teaching for an hour. They want you to be focused on a teaching for 0.2 of a second, and then on to the next thing, then on to the next thing, and then on to the next thing, and on to the next thing. So they can harvest more data, rack up more clicks, sell more ads, and around and around we go. And we can go from $500 million company to $1 trillion company. So that's the entire intention of that platform. We can still use it as a win, but what we do with Subsplash live streaming, for example, you can live stream in your app, phone, tablet, TVs. It'll broadcast to your website and simulcast there at the same time. And then we will give you the ability to send a feed to Facebook and send a feed to YouTube. So app, website, Facebook, YouTube. You cast that wide net. Here's how you can get access to our content. Here it is. But rather than funneling people out the door, so hey, welcome to church, now go watch us at Facebook. Hey, welcome to church, now go over to YouTube. And we just welcome them in just to shoot them back out the door, and every click's going to take them one step further away from us. Instead, whoever is managing that moderating the chat and managing that for the team, you could say, hey, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, that's great. You're essentially on the dartboard. We're so glad you found us. We'd much rather you be on the dartboard than not. So, hey, welcome here. But if you guys really want to get the most out of this experience and really start to learn and grow with us, come into our online campus. Download the app, download the website, pull up what we have going in there, and every click will take you one step deeper. So that means I came for the message, and now I take my sermon notes. I came for the message. I joined the Bible study group. I came for the message. I was able to pull up our daily Bible reading plan and follow along. I came for the message. I want to give a gift. I came for the message. I want to share this with a friend. Every click inside your online campus is built to take them deeper with us instead of every click will take them further away from us. So big difference there. But Justin, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say just another way to maybe think about, Bobby, what you just said is, YouTube and Facebook are great for explorers. In fact, you and I could argue that the Holy Spirit is the greatest PR representative of all time. Like, he just has an amazing way of getting the gospel or the hope that people need at the right time, at the right place, right when they need it. But while those environments are great for explorers, they're not great for those who want to be engaged or are already highly engaged with your ministry. For that, they're going to want to go deeper with apps. We see some of the same phenomenon with websites as well. When people go onto websites, and we offer websites because they're necessary, but websites at the same way are for people who are, they're looking to explore. They want to see, is this a place that I want to go to? Is there a message that I can watch? What time are the services? Can you take care of my kids? These are questions that they're asking. Once they have those answers, they're going to jump from the website. They'll jump from YouTube. They'll go right into the mobile app environment where we see over 90% of the time that people are spending, up to 5 to 6 hours a day, are spent inside the context of mobile apps. This is where engaged audiences want to spend time in branded environments, specifically to the messages and mission that they want to be a part of. So this is important.
Yeah, I see it in the chat. And again, we're going to actually be jumping into a Q&A here shortly, but I already see a ton of people in the chat. Donald, a couple others just mentioning like, hey, we got hit with those censorship things. We had the CCLI license. We had, we wrote the song ourselves, and somehow it still got flagged and shut down. The amazing part with Subsplash is, cast that wide net, cast that big vision. But if we can funnel them into the right spot, if Facebook or YouTube shut down your live stream, it does not affect what happens in your online campus and the app or the website. Those stay up. You're the only person who decides when that message turns off and on. And so it's bringing that control back to you guys to be scalable. And then after that message is done, just hit save, and this will automatically archive it in the app and the website. We'll pull out the most recent one, put that on the front page of your website. We'll pull out the audio, send that to a podcast. So when it comes to archiving, app, website, front page of the website, podcast, literally in one click. And so hopefully that saves you guys some time as well in terms of management and the headache from time spent.
Yeah, well, and even on that note, when I went to Bible college, I didn't go to learn code, although I think maybe the first year of most seminaries should include coding, just of how integral, discipleship. But that's really what Subsplash is here to help solve for you. You don't have to know code. I've seen a couple, questions in here even about how easy it is to set things up inside of ours. Frankly, if you can create a post within Facebook, you can build an app on our platform. And I mean that sincerely. It is very, very user-friendly in terms of even the admin side. And because so much of this digital ecosystem is connected and interconnected under one umbrella, we're talking about one-click publishing. We're talking about all the systems talking to each other. We're talking about much smaller time spent and money spent on trying to farm all of these different resources out and duct taping 9 systems together to make it work for your congregation. That's going to be a burden on any team. We can roll all this into one spot and make this easy for your congregations as well as for your team who's building it.
Yeah, and kind of one last thing, I'll just chime in on this. It really is the end game is equipping. That's the end goal. And so cast that wide net. Hey, if you found it here, great. But ultimately, you're trying to train people and educate them to walk around with this device that they already are having, they already have in their pocket at all times. And then ultimately empowering them to share on their social media. And so it's not being invisible on social media at all, but it's changing the relationship that we use. So again, rather than that highway that just funnels people away from us and they're harvesting all the fruit of it, use it as a way to funnel people back to us and then educate our congregation to go, hey, if that message spoke to you, if you want to invite your friend to the picnic, whatever that piece of content inside your campus that spoke to you, post it on your own social media. And they can do that within 2 clicks. Text it to a friend, email to a friend, post it on your own socials and be like, here's this week's message. This rocked my world. Here's why. And they might have 1,000 friends, and 950 of them have maybe never been to our church, but that has the ability to reach a completely different audience, and it will resonate even better because it came from a personal page rather than the church's page. So again, share it from the church's page, but really educate people, encourage and equip them to share it from their own page. And that is a huge, huge difference maker.
So good.
Cool. Well, slides are going crazy. Here we go. With that said, we do have a couple really cool promotions to help you guys unlock the toolbox and get started, as soon as possible. And one of those things is we'll take $500 off the cost of the Subsplash tools from now till the end of the month, which is amazing. But on top of that, it's not just unlocking the tools. Truly our heart is caring for our partners and caring for the church in all facets. And so, Justin, tell us a little about the Full Strength Network partnership that you helped bring together.
Yeah, we're really honored to be partnering this way with churches and Full Strength Network. So Full Strength Network is a really cool ministry, and they are a ministry. They do pastoral coaching and counseling virtually. And so they've got really cool tools set up where from the comfort of your office or living room, if this is something that you're looking for, we'd be happy to help you, get connected in this way. Full Strength, we partnered with them when we did the drop a few months ago, and I'll just give you just an insight into how fast this went. We offered hey, the first 100 pastors to sign up for our webinar would get another, get a year of Full Strength. And we had that all 100 of those were requested within 25 minutes. So we know that this is a need, and rightly so. The last 2 years have been very difficult. Ministry in general is not always easy, or for the faint of heart. These last 2 years certainly hasn't been. And part of our vision at Subsplash is to equip the church. It's what we say almost, in every single meeting that we gather as an organization is we want to equip every church. And that is, yes, with world-class digital tools, but that also comes with an understanding that our best ministry comes from a place of overflow, not from a place of deficit where we're trying to manufacture or, heave together and convince people to do something, but that out of, as 3 John says, that we would prosper even as our soul prospers. And so part of what we want to do with Full Strength is make sure that as pastors and leaders, we're equipping the souls and facilitating those kinds of thriving as well, so that everything else within the ministry just works.
Awesome.
Yeah, the other thing that we're doing too is for those who are currently with Subsplash, maybe you've got a platform and you're interested, in Subsplash One. Right now, we'd love to, just completely take out the upgrade fees for you, take 30% off the monthly cost over Subsplash One as well, just to give some extra blessing to you as you're looking to find new ways and new inroads to reach your congregations. So this is available to you as well. All you have to do is reach out to your client success manager. If you didn't know that you have had a client success manager, good news, you've got one. These are people who are, wanting to help not just upgrade the platform, but strategize with you, contextualize your ministry, help roll out new initiatives within your church on our platform, and would be happy to have that conversation with you. Next, this is really cool as well. For all of our Subsplash partners, those who are on the platform, yesterday we just launched more resources available at no additional charge inside your digital ecosystem. And so what that looks like is teaching content from Ligonier Ministries and R.C. Sproul, Bible Project content that you can have right inside your app as well at no additional charge. We still have season 1 of The Chosen. If you didn't know that we have that in there, with all these come with study guides and ways to go deeper beyond just the video content. And then we have Wild at Heart as well, John Eldridge's ministry, both the Wild Heart experience for men and the Captivating experience for women as well. And those are available within your app systems as well. You can reach out and we'll get you plugged into that too.
Yeah, I actually love this free content. I mean, content is king. And so your messages, daily Bible reading plans, watch the Ligonier message, watch the Chosen series, Bible projects, just unbelievable. And so making sure that those are just boom, unlocked and included have really helped bridge those summer gap months too, when staffs are on break, people are traveling, to make sure that there's amazing, fresh new content in there, and giving people a reason to open it up consistently is a huge win. And we'll kind of dive into the Q&A section. I already see a couple questions coming in, but again, feel free to ping that Q&A channel. But one I'll talk right now from Joel. Great question. Joel, how can Subsplash be used to grow the congregation if we're not relying on big tech. In other words, how do people find us? How do we discipleship to them? And that's great. Again, I want to make sure I'm crystal clear. It's not saying be invisible on social media and be and run for the hills. Lean into the strengths there, but also don't put all of your investment in there and hoping that if we just are going to live there, that's going to be our online campus and it's going to fuel us well. Kind of the way to think about it though is use big tech, use social media, use some of those things to funnel people back to us. So what that means, websites included in everybody's package. Our websites are built mobile responsive and mobile friendly. That will help you in search engine optimization without you even have to do anything. You can also put in SEO keywords to make sure you boost your score. And then there's a million other little tips and tricks in there that either we're doing or we can coach you on to help get better exposure. So that will help with kind of the Google search side, but the other side is word of mouth. And that's a huge part of it. How do people find you? Google searches, word of mouth. And so making sure we equip our congregation to walk around and know what's in their pocket at all times to bridge that gap, to share that touch point is enormous. And so I talked to a couple of churches for Easter, right? We hopefully got to do a normalish Easter for most people this year, rather than printing off 1,000 flyers and you end up, 900 of them, you end up throwing in the trash. And then the other 50 are under, people's car seats and nobody else ended up getting invited. What you could do if this fits the culture of your church, you'd say, hey, pull up your app. Everybody got it? Great. Here's the invite for this Sunday's Easter service. We're going to do this collectively as a church right now. It's going to take all of 15 seconds. Click this invite and share it on your own Facebook. And maybe you have a church of 200 people, 100 people, 50 people, whatever. But if they have 500 friends and you posted it, how impactful and how many touch points did you just increase by doing it for 15 seconds? Or say, hey, invite 2 friends, text it right now, pull out the invite, text this to the next 2 friends that pop in your head, and boom, you just increase touch points very organically without having to pay to boost your score in the algorithm or anything like that.
Yeah, that's great. Bobby, I want to actually take this all the way back to a question that dropped within the first couple minutes of this webinar. There's a few more subsequent questions that followed up about what about AWS and our hosting? What if AWS has some of those same concerns? And certainly, I just want to let this group know that that's something that we are aware of. And also too, we have great relationships with all of our partners. It's not just AWS, and we are constantly looking at that, what we are currently offering, and who we're partnered with, which again, I'll reiterate, is not solely AWS. We're aware of that issue. And also we're looking at what the future expansion of those kinds of partnerships look like for the future. So I hope that would at least maybe alleviate some of those questions a little bit, and be a response that could be received well. We're aware, we have multiple partners, and we're constantly looking for more. Yeah, cool. I see a couple, just two quick questions, one from Haley and one from Stone. Stone's basically like, hey, is Subsplash One different than our current legacy package? Potentially. So depends on when you signed up, but these new Subsplash One packages have been around for about a year. If you signed up pre that, then there are probably some tools that you don't have unlocked. And so reach out to your client success manager. Again, part of the webinar is we will waive any upgrading fees and make sure we unlock as many tools as possible and help you consolidate other tools in the process. And then another quick one from Haley, has Subsplash ever discussed branching out to create something for Christian schools? So we actually work with a ton of schools already. So kind of the way the building blocks works, it's kind of like Legos, right? The Legos that we build are specifically built in terms of how do we help serve the church. But with that said, we have a ton of schools, a ton of nonprofits, and even some businesses that are like, hey, I see the building blocks that you created, that will work for my project. And so, yeah, I just got off the phone before the webinar with a church in North Carolina that also has a school. So they have their school one, and then they have their app for their church, and they have the 2 separate ones. And so, yeah, reach out to our team, Haley. We'd love to talk to you about some of those options. Yeah, that's great. Another question that I saw that also came in right at the beginning of the hour was a question about our Beyond Sunday events. There's one that's happening in the Seattle area on July 11th. And the question was, are there more that are going to be doing? The answer is, yeah, we have 12 more cities lined up starting in August, at the end of August. They're going to be everywhere from Cincinnati, Fort Wayne, Atlanta, Nashville, Dallas. There's a number of them that we're looking to do. And these Beyond Sunday workshops are just that. We're gathering people together. We just did one in Austin. We've got the other one in Seattle, the Seattle area coming up. These are opportunities to start sharing strategies and what it looks like to, again, develop that theology around digital discipleship and really integrate the online and the physical engagement that churches are moving towards with some creative ideas, brainstorming sessions, and ways to start to use the tools that are available now to accomplish that mission. So great question.
Cool.
We're excited to come to a city near you.
I see another one from Tim. Tim had a question about a free trial. And I totally understand that question. A lot of people will ask for free trial because that is how a lot of other software companies operate. You sign up for, this accounting software, you sign up for this service, you get a free trial. Ours is going to be slightly different because most software companies are like, give us money, here's the tool, please never contact us. Lose my phone number. Thank you for your credit card on file. Never talk to me again. And then they try to soft exit out the door. So ours is completely different. Just because you're like, yes, let's do this with Subsplash, that is the start of the partnership, not the ending. And so you'll be partnered with an onboarding specialist. So you work with a ministry consultant first, which is what I am. Then you're handed off and introduced to an onboarding specialist. Their sole role is to project manage and make sure that you get your tools connected properly and published live in the App Store, which again, most teams have never done. And then once you graduate to being published, then you'll start working with your client success manager in terms of strategy. How do we implement this? How do we roll this out? We have this upcoming conference. Hey, how do we leverage this during Christmas time? Back to school season. What are best practices? Here's what we have upcoming. We're trying to fundraise for a building. We're trying to send 10 kids to camp. Whatever that big awesome goal that you guys are trying to accomplish, talk that over with your client success manager to talk strategy. And then over the top over this whole time is tech support. So we have tech support with real life human beings that you can submit an email ticket to. Either tutorials or just schedule a call with them, and we can help you on that front as well. And so there's not really a trial because there's no way to demo what it's like to be a Subsplash partner. And so if you do have questions though, in terms of like workflow or process, or can we consolidate that? Can I hold on to this? Just talk to your ministry consultant rep. I would love to set up a Zoom just like this and invite 100 of your closest friends, just like this webinar. and I'll show you exactly how it all works.
Great. I know we have like just two more minutes here, and lots of questions coming through. I wanted to answer one of them that I saw, and I'm trying to take them in the order that I'm seeing them. Is how can Subsplash be used to grow the congregation if the church is to not rely on big tech? In other words, how can a church find and connect with new people to disciple if not via big tech? Isn't competition for attention necessary on some level just to begin engaging with people so they can even know to download the church's Subsplash app? That is a great question. So again, I would answer it in two ways. Number one, because you can do syndicated broadcasts and a lot of one-click publishing, you can still utilize some of the big tech, again, to cast a line for fishing, if you want to use that analogy. Absolutely. But one of the most powerful things about Christianity, and many of us know this on this call, is Christianity is a relationally transformational exchange, not just with Christ himself, but with other believers. And so one of the things that we have built into our platform is at any point with our dynamic content, when I say dynamic, I mean events, media, blog posts, even the app itself, anything that is dynamic and constantly changing, all of that has the ability to do sharing right out of the app. So instead of sending your congregation off with a flyer, as Bobby mentioned earlier, and those things get lost under car seats and under pews and chairs and in the trash. And my wife has been a communications expert in churches for years, working with churches on marketing, would spend hours and thousands of dollars on flyers only to see them in the trash 15 minutes outside of service. Heartbreaking, just devastating. With the mobile app, because it's all digital and constantly being uploaded, and because it's so shareable, you're arming your congregation with one of the most effective grassroots tools that's out there that doesn't point people into the big tech ecosystem. They can share any sermon, devotional, Bible reading plan, the app itself, events coming up that would resonate with their friends through text, social media, email, etc. Those people then connect in because of the relational touch point and are now connected to your church. And actually, it's why we see typically anywhere between 3 to 5 times the amount of app downloads versus the size of your congregation on a weekly basis, because we see people sharing the content out and the audience grows much farther than the congregation itself.
Well, cool. I know we're butting up against time, but I just have one last question I want to point out. Robert Garon with one of my favorite questions today. Bobby looks like Ralph Macchio, doesn't he? You usually get AC Slater, Mario Lopez, but I will take both, although I'm Team Cobra Kai. Sorry, I'm one of the bad guys. No, I did see one question, though, about event registration and what does that look like. That would also be included in Subsplash as well. And so, yes, we do have the ability to do paid and unpaid event registration. And so, amazing tool. We'd love to talk to you more about it and help you unlock that one. And a lot of that information can also be found on our blog as well. But yeah, reminder, just kind of ebook is here. We'll send out the recording. And if you are a Subsplash partner, feel free to book time with your client success manager. They can tell you about all the options and maybe unlock some of the tools that you're not using. And anyone who is not a Subsplash partner, we would love to connect with you. Feel free to visit subsplash.com, the webinar. And Justin, I know I'm kind of springing it on you last month, but do you mind just praying us out and just pray over all these church leaders? We have over 100 on the call. I mean, it'd be so cool if you could just bless them and send us off.
Oh man, I'd be honored. Yeah, thank you all for joining us today. It's an honor to be partnered with you. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, we're grateful for promises in your word, like in Isaiah, where it says that you know and you see the end from the beginning, which is such a relief to us when we don't see the end from the beginning. All we see is what's right in front of us now, with hopes, dreams, concerns, sometimes worries and fears about what the future may hold. And we don't have to be afraid because you're in the future. Your word says in Revelation chapter 2 that whoever has ears to hear, let them hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. And so I pray for every single person on this call today, that as we are laboring together to create environments and ongoing rhythms that would allow people to connect in and find refuge and to find hope and to find comfort and peace in the middle of turbulent times, would you help get the word out in all of our communities about what's happening in the life of our churches? I pray for creative ideas. I pray for an abundance of resources. That's people resources. That's generous givers financially. That's people who are willing to raise their hand and take a step deeper into what you have for them in their lives. I pray that neighborhoods would be transformed through all the different initiatives that are happening around. There's so many things that are in our heart to do, the mission that you've called us to do, the great commission that you've invited us to be a part of. We can't do it without you. And so, God, would you quicken our hands for the work of ministry? Would you strengthen our hearts for the journey ahead? And would you give us eyes to see what it is that you're doing, ears to hear what it is that you're whispering to us? And would we link arms together and make a difference in our cities, in our states, our regions, our country, and beyond? In Jesus' name, amen.